Welcome to a new video. I haven't done a video in so long. The Project Hail Mary reaction was my last video. I'm not going to be that guy that has this long intro that has all these rules. All that I'm going to say is that I'm including some from 2024. I'm doing that because I started reading in September of 24. I think it was like September 7th of 2024. I didn't read a lot. I think there was like 4 books. Here are the top 10 of my favorite books of all time. They're probably what you think, but they're probably not what you think as well, because I do have some unpopular opinions. Now let's get right into it. Starting at number 10. All right, at number 10 is I think this was like the 3rd book that I've read. I was totally influenced by BookTube. James by Percival Everett. Okay, this is a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, which I've never read. So when everybody was talking about this, end of 2024 into beginning of 2025, I was into it. I was also into it because the cover is so cool as well. I'm a big fan of this cover. Not that big of a book. Believe it or not, it's in my top 10, but I gave it 4 stars. You know, if I reread this, or maybe if I read Huckleberry Finn, I might have a better appreciation for this book, but I loved it. I couldn't put it down. It was relatively easy to read. There's lots of racial content in this and racial slurs, which might put some people off, but that was the times, right? And I will say it did play a contributing factor for me making the book less. Just reading, that kind of stuff is kind of weird for me to read. The book as a whole, the story, the writing, everything, the cover, which definitely plays a part for me, puts this at number 10. I give this 4 stars. All right, let's just not say anything right away. Just hear me out. Number 9 is The Hobbit. I finished this December 31st of 2024. 2 days left of the year. I got some smaller books, 100 pages or whatnot, and I thought, well, I can probably get some of that done in 2 days. But I thought, why not just start early? It's 2 days. If this brings me into January, then this will be considered a January read, right? I finished this in 2 days, and it's like 400 pages. It's 390 pages. And I finished it in 2 days. I binged this. I had the audiobook as well, and the audiobook was absolutely incredible. This book was so much fun. The vibes were good. It was interesting. It was a page turner, of course. Catches my attention. It made me laugh. The cover is great, and when all of the Lord of the Rings are together, can you see that? Wait, there it is. Right there. They look so good together, right? I never read nor saw the movies Lord of the Rings. I want to get into that. I'm interested in that journey, if you will. I'm at a great place to start with The Hobbit. Introduction to like Gandalf and Bilbo Baggins, and of course how they found the ring. So cool. I can't wait to read Lord of the Rings. This comes in at number 9, and I did give this 5 stars. So we're already into 5-star territory with The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. All right, coming in at number 8, it's hidden by my head, so you're not going to see books disappear off my shelf, but my head's covering this one. So let's get right into it. Number 8 is The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. This is book number dos in the Dark Tower series, and not that big of a book. Do you guys care about this? Font sizes, everything, okay? Man, this thing was cool. I've read a little bit of Stephen King at this point when I read this book, and I haven't read any of his horror novels. And they call him the king of horror, of course, right? And here I am reading his fictions and his fantasies, and they're just great. I'm absolutely enjoying Stephen King. This is book 2 of The Dark Tower. Did I have a great time with the gunslinger? Yes. Did I like the gunslinger? Yes. Was it a great book? I give it 3 stars. And Stephen King actually said it himself, that it wasn't his best works. And as a matter of fact, he actually revised the book, which I read the revised edition. And there were still like some holes, and things just happened. There wasn't like a nice flow of progression of this man, Roland, the main character, of his kind of journey. It was just kind of one event after another, and bing, bam, boom, right? And so I really consider this to be the first book in the series. There is some ties to the gunslinger, but this was just so cool and so incredible. A massive step forward from the gunslinger. So if you read the gunslinger and you hated it and decided not to continue with the Dark Tower series, we get it. We all get it. Please read this book. I gave this one 5 stars. It was so much fun, so interesting, a page turner, awesome. It was funny, it was interesting. I can't say enough about this. And unfortunately, it is book 2, so I can't just recommend it to say, here, read this. You unfortunately have to go through the gunslinger to get to here, of course. But hey, it comes in at number 8 on my shelf. I did make a YouTube video of this. Do I recommend you go watch it? Yes, of course, because it's one of my YouTube videos. But it wasn't a great video. I used a different camera, and it just wasn't that great. I wasn't in a state to record. But the book, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. You guys are watching everybody's top 10, and majority of the people have this book. If they read this book this year, it is on their top 10. It is a tome. It's 930 pages, I think. Nope, 860. I mean, it's still a tome, but I mean, just look at this. It is a paperback. I got like this thing going on where the spine bends, and I like can't get it straight. And it's not just me, because everybody else in their video has this. But I think it goes to the quality of the flop. I like to fidget, I like to fidget. Anybody else have one of those like fidget cubes? Like every side of the cube had a different thing, and you just like fiddle with something. Oh man, those were great for anxiety. Hey, anyways, Lonesome Dove. Let me stop beating around the bush. Absolutely incredible book. Audible has removed the audiobook from their library, so I do a lot of tandem read. If not every book that I read is with the physical copy and the audiobook. I didn't have an audiobook for this. Anyways, Pulitzer Prize winner for a reason, because it was good. It's a Western, it's a love story, it's a story about a journey, leadership, friendship, kindness, love, and life, to be honest, right? That life isn't so easy, and it throws you all the curveballs, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and how you, as you can reflect on the characters, how you deal with them and continue pressing on. This book was one of the first books that I actually understood the message and picked up on the message. Obviously without the audiobook, just reading it with my eyes, coming up with the visualization in my head and understanding it from start to finish. And again, my ADD did not let me put this down. So that's a good sign. Um, I had many, multiple hour long reading sessions. Brought this book everywhere on travels. I was reading it on the plane, 5-hour plane ride, and I'd take a trip out to Stanley Park. I live in Vancouver, so I'd go to Stanley Park and just sit in the park and read this book. Like this book gave me those vibes, right? I was that random stranger in public reading a book, and how many people I actually noticed, because I'm pretty observant, but how many people walking by and actually like looking at me. They're probably looking at me because maybe I don't look like a reader, but maybe because they see this tome that I'm reading and they're like, you're doing that in public. Guys, this book was incredible. Oof. The ending hit hard. I didn't like how it just like abruptly ended, you know? I would have liked, it was a pretty grand finale, but it ended on with a dialogue, and it just kind of abruptly ended. When I was going through the ending of the book, it brought me through a journey, as I said in my video. That last little bit, probably like this much of the book, it backtracked, right? And there's many times I caught myself going, oh yeah, I forgot that happened, right? So it's really a really good way to write a book, especially one that's this big, to get to the end of the book and the character retraces his steps through the entire journey, and you go down that trip of memory lane with them and then come to a full stop. It was so beautifully done. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. Please go read this one. Provide me an intermission. Oh, I threw an electrolyte package in the water. Oof, it hits hard. Where were we? Hey, number 6 on the list is yet again another Stephen King. That one is Pet Sematary. Hey, Pet Sematary was great. I didn't do a video on it. I also read another Stephen King horror. If you know, you know. I read them back to back. Really great, but obviously Pet Sematary has stood out. I was slightly worried with this book because Stephen King, in these kind of colored or rainbow editions, as you can see, I'm collecting, he writes an introduction in the introduction, and I read them because they make me appreciate the book more, but they also made me appreciate Stephen King more. He writes them just so personally, as if it's a letter to you. It's not like scripted, or it's not like a PR thing. It just seems so personal, as if you met Stephen King right here in front of you and you said, hey, tell me about Pet Sematary. And this is what he would say, how he would just speak it, right? It gave me a different appreciation for Stephen King. And at the same time, it puts me in a certain headspace for the book as well. I want to read you a quote. It's actually the very first couple sentences from his introduction. You probably know Pet Sematary already, but not every book has this introduction in it. I think I saw one at the bookstore that didn't have it. Anyways, let me read it, and then we'll talk about it. When I'm asked, as I frequently am, what I consider to be the most frightening book I've ever written, the answer I give comes easily and with no hesitation: Pet Sematary. It may not be one that scares the reader the most based on the mail that he gets. I'd guess that one is The Shining. But the fear bone, like the funny bone, is located in different places on different people. All I know is that Pet Sematary is the one I put away in a drawer, thinking I had finally gone too far. So if Stephen King, and you know what, I think even later, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but later he even like apologizes for writing this book. It is a relatively true story, because he did, no spoilers here, but he did rent a house in Maine that had a pet cemetery, behind his property, and that kind of gave him the idea of the book. So all that's kind of true, but then obviously the story is much of his imagination. There was a Judd character to him in that house that he rented. Um, so this was my first horror book by Stephen King. Most people that recommend this book say if you have kids or pets, be warned. I don't have kids, I don't have pets, but I have a niece who just turned 2 at the time that I read this, and I pictured my brother a lot. I pictured myself a lot because I've had pets before and all this stuff. And, of course, you can just visualize yourself as a parent if you don't have kids. And the trauma of losing a kid or a pet is insane, right? Like the grief that people go to. And that's the kind of horror that Stephen King touches on, the psychology of what scares people the most. Loved ones dying, right? You think of a loved one dying, it's terrifying. And then when you read this and see what the character is going through, and then you relate to it, that is the fear that Stephen King tries to strike. Like he said, the fear bone, right? I felt it in a different way. I didn't cry at all. It didn't do that to me. But I could see where it would. And this book was great. I read it in 6 days, which is incredible for me. So, Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I do recommend this book, but I'll say it like everybody else. Be warned. If you have kids and pets, tread lightly, use caution, make sure you're in a good mood to read it. I want you to read this, but I want you to be okay reading this. And from what I hear of personally, and of course just on YouTube, some people regretted recommending this to friends and family. So, hey, Pet Sematary, this is coming in at number 6. Number 5 is a nonfiction, and I made a video on this. It was a pretty cool video, I think. Didn't do as well as I thought, but I don't know. Most people don't care about this book. I've only seen one YouTuber or booktuber that I actually watch a lot. Just kind of mentioned it, and that was the end of it. So nothing really crazy about it, but I cannot stop thinking about this book and also recommending it. I recommended it to so many people. Ladies and gentlemen, number 5 for me is Endurance. This one's by Alfred Lansing. Endurance is, of course, a nonfiction, history nonfiction, because it's about a point in our history. It's about the ship Endurance, and it's about Ernest Shackleton as well, who is the captain or commander of the ship Endurance. And that's I think, most of his crew. I think, if I remember correctly in the caption, there were some people missing. Obviously, the guy taking the photo and whatnot, but that's most of them. They had a bunch of dogs with them as well. Yeah, I also recommended this to a bunch of people. Yeah, they're the little puppers. To a bunch of people who are actually going on the Antarctica trip, taking that cruise to Antarctica. Because I think that when you read this book and you see those images and then you actually go to Antarctica and it's like you are there, I think this book will be way more meaningful to them and just more personal and more cooler. But at the same time, I'm sorry, I think the Titanic might be slightly overrated. Let's pay more attention to Endurance, please. Let's make a movie about this. There is a movie about this, but it's kind of like a documentary kind of thing. It's not like a Titanic type movie. God, man, this book was so cool. Anyways, it's about their journey to Antarctica, and they get stuck, and it's about their survival. I'll leave it at that with no spoilers. You can go watch my video on it over there. Yeah, so cool. 5 stars. It's number 5 on my list. And I'll also say, because I didn't know this until I got the book, but I think it's super important for you to know if you're kind of like, yeah, I'll probably not read it because it's a nonfiction, but and it's written by somebody else, not like the person that went through that experience, which is kind of what most nonfictions are, right? Because of course all these people are no longer with us, not because of what happened in the book, just because this happened in 1915. The Alfred Lansing actually has everybody's journal, and I think those journals are in a museum, so you can actually go. They are a real thing, and so he kind of pieced together the events in history of saying like, okay, what happened next, or where did they go next? He knew everything because these guys were journaling and documenting every single day, and if somebody missed a day, well, somebody else journaled that day, right? And it's still covered. So he had everybody's journal and pieced together what happened from start to finish, and wrote a book. And he actually quotes a lot of the journals. He would say like, Ernest wrote this, and then he would quote the section, paragraph, sentence in the journal, and then kind of continue the story. So it was so cool to just be immersed in this whole fascinating uh, journey. It made it so real, and of course the real pictures that are here as well. Um, if you have any sort of interest in history, I recommend checking out Endurance. 5 stars. It was awesome. All right, coming in at number 4 is the first. Oh, you saw it. Hey, there we go. Is Stephen King's Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. This is, of course, a short story. It's 100 pages long. And when I was just laying in bed going, I should probably start reading. That'd be kind of fun. I do like reading. I kind of read like 100 books, a book a year. And so I thought, let me increase that a little bit. Let me go get another book, right? So I went to the bookstore, and of course I said, I don't want something big. I don't want something like that. And if I don't have an interest in it, or maybe the just holding this massive book is such a deterrent for me, because I'm just like, oh, when's this going to end? My ADD is just not paying attention, whatever. So I saw this, and I was like, hey, I know Shawshank Redemption, but I didn't know it was a Stephen King book, and I didn't see the movie. All I know is kind of like a prison movie. That's literally all that I knew. So I was like, hey, what better way to do this than a Stephen King, which who doesn't know Stephen King? Guys, this was incredible. Oh my God. It's like 6 stars. Um, there's no chapters or anything. It's straight through. Uh, I laughed. I cried. I loved it. I hated it. I hated characters. I loved characters. I was interested in characters. I was disinterested in characters. Um, I couldn't put it down, even though it took me about a week to read. Just I was so new at reading. And then I watched the movie after, and it just made it awesome because the movie was so close to this. But it's just beautifully written. God, Shawshank Redemption was so cool. So much fun. First book I've read, September of 2024. And at one point, this was number 1 on my list. But of course, as I read more books, it pushed it down to number 4. And the top 3 are kind of wild and kind of different as well. So I don't know what to say about this. It was just everything you want in a book, emotionally and for entertainment, everything. Shawshank Redemption, 5 stars, is number 4 on my list. This was another early one that I read, very beginning of 2025. I had a great time with this book. It was one of the first larger books that I've read. Coming in at like over 500 pages, about 520 pages. I'm so sorry to do this to you. Not that it matters because it's my top 10 list, but it's another Stephen King, and that is Billy Summers. Not a horror book, uh, like almost all the Stephen King books that I've read, aside from Pet Sematary and The Shining. This, well, some consider The Stand as a horror, but uh, this one is just a fiction, and it's a relatively new book. I think it came out in 2022. Um, Holy cow, this is cool. It's about a ex-Marine sniper. I think he was ex-Marine, and he was an assassin, or like a hitman, and he's got one last job. What can go wrong, right? Uh, it seems like such like a cliche plot and movie, you know, thing going on there. But oh man, he made it so cool. Um, you got more into this guy's you got less into this guy's job and more into his personal life and how he goes about daily life in disguise of what he's actually doing. And his disguise is that he's there to write a book. Leave it to Stephen King to write a character that's an author. He's done it many, many times in books that I haven't read yet, but he's done it many times. And this guy's writing a book. Near the end, it tricked me. So look at this. This is the end of the book, and it's bolded text. When it's bolded text, it's like his writing, or it's like you reading his book. Um, but it flows so nicely, and at the end, I actually thought it was the real thing, and I got excited because it's like the outcome that I wanted happened. Uh, but then I flipped the page and the chapter ended. So I flipped the page, go to the next chapter, and then I realized that the next chapter wasn't bolded. Like I didn't realize that it was bolded. Like you look at that, like, okay, that's a bolded text, but it doesn't look like big. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like a bold text. But then when you compare it to the normal text, then it's obvious, right? And so I did that, and I was just like, well, there's one. You can see it back to back, the bolded with the regular there. And then I was like, oh no, that was the book. And then it was just this whole mind game. I was going to swear there, but this whole mind game of like, what is true, what isn't true, and why isn't it true, and what happened? Like it was such a curveball, and it was so cool, so beautifully written. I loved it, and guys, I wept at the end. Oh my God, the ending was so heartbreaking, so heartbreaking. This book comes in at number 3, ladies and gentlemen. 6 stars, 100%. This was a 6-star read. It was so cool. And this was actually number 2 until a very recent read, which pushed it down to number 3. So let's go check out number 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, number 2 is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I was going to make it suspenseful, but for some reason I just held up the book, so we're just going to roll with it. If you watched any bit of my channel, which you probably haven't, but I have said in almost every video that Project Hail Mary was my favorite book of all time. And it recently got knocked out. Of course, my most popular video, it went viral, was the reaction to the movie. They're making a movie of this now. And I'm so happy that I read this book when it kind of first came out. This was like the second book that I read. I read this right after Shawshank Redemption. And this one, it's 470 pages. It's sci-fi. It's Andy Weir. It's the guy who wrote The Martian, if you're not familiar. And which I know everybody knows that The Martian was very accurate, scientifically accurate, but he made it not boring to people who don't care about science or what have you. He made it accessible and readable and interesting. Just made it where it added to the story as opposed to being overwritten. He did it again with this book, and I have to say The Martian is my favorite movie of all time. But the book, I think just because I know what was going to happen, I was just reading it to read it. But Project Hail Mary, I don't think that's going to happen because I read the book first. I've seen the trailer, both of them now. There's two. I should have reacted to the second one, but it actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the trailers. And Project Hail Mary, again, like all the ones in my top 10 list, they made me laugh, cry, keeping me interested and wanting to know what happens next. I laughed, I cried. I literally had, I'm not going to say it because if you haven't seen the trailer, then you also don't know. But the trailer gave away a very big spoiler that everybody was keeping a secret when they talk about the book. Because when you read the book, this was my reaction. You ready? What? No way. Is that what I think it is? Right? I was literally blown away. Like, I remember just laying in bed and reading that scene, if you will, and I was just like, oh my God. You saw my reaction in the trailer too. I had the same reaction when I was reading the book. Please don't go see the trailer. Don't. If you haven't seen the trailer, if you didn't know it's a movie, don't. Just go buy the book and read it. Read the book before the movie comes out, and don't watch the trailer because it gives away a spoiler. And that spoiler is so well contained and so well hidden, you had no idea it was coming. At least I didn't. And from what a lot of people said in my YouTube comments on that video, we were discussing why they put that in the trailer and whatnot. Almost everybody did not see it coming, and it was just so well contained and so well written and then so well revealed. It was incredible. Please go read the book and don't ruin it for yourself by watching the trailer or the movie if you're watching this later on. Just go watch Hail Mary. Or no. Read Hail Mary. Oh man, this book was incredible. I'm going to reread it again because I want to read it right before I go see the movie. Project Hail Mary is now number 2. It was number 1 for a whole year. All right, coming in at number 1, my favorite book of all time is one that I read in November, very, very recently. It is a big book. Can I reveal it like this? Yeah, there you go. You can't see anything. It's a big book. It's like 750 pages, maybe more. I think it might have been close to 900. Hey, I'm just guessing at this point. But my favorite book of all time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry it's another Stephen King, because I read so much of his work this past year. He just dominated my TBR. That is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Look how cool this edition is too. Purple's my favorite color, and now my favorite book. Oh man, yeah, it's almost 800 pages, this edition. This book was incredible. It's a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of a love story, and a little bit of a historical fiction. That's what I was looking for. For me to read 800 pages in a week is mind-blowing. I flew through this book because I wanted more. I didn't want it to end, and when it did end, should I show you the wet pages? A couple days, no, it was about a week after I finished this, I watched the series. That was pretty accurate too. I think it was 8 episodes. It was a mini-series. The ending of that mini-series was very true to the book, and even on the mini-series, my face was wet. God, I don't know what to say about this book that gets the point across. It's Stephen King's best book, and I've read The Stand, and I like this better than The Stand. You know, I didn't like The Stand as much as I thought it would. It's not even on my top 10, ladies and gentlemen, and most people put it as their favorite book of all time or their favorite Stephen King of all time. I think 11/22/63 absolutely surpasses The Stand by a long shot. This had everything in it, and it had Stephen King at his peak, and this was written in 2011, so a fairly recent read to him. I recommend getting the audiobook. The audiobook was really good, and there's also a like an ending by Stephen King. It's like an epilogue, or maybe not an epilogue, but Stephen King just talks about him writing this book and everything that he went through, all the research he did for the book. It was super cool too, just hearing Stephen King talk about why he wrote the book and all this stuff, right? I love this book. I cherish this book. I'm going to reread it multiple times. It was just absolutely incredible. It broke me. It broke me more than Pet Sematary, to be honest with you. I loved it. I hated it. Loved characters. Hated characters. I laughed. I cried. I was amazed. I was shocked. I was blown away. Where does it end? It doesn't. 11/22/63, my favorite book of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to do more videos of like the worst books that I've read, including all the DNFs. And then, of course, I'm going to do, I have a list right here. Worst books have I read? Cool. Top 10 books on my TBR. So my top 10 books for 2026. I don't have my light on. Oh man, I'm not redoing that. I hope the lighting was okay. Wait, why is it not turning on? Ah! Oh no, that's brightness. Yeah, that's fine. Wasn't there like a shader? Yeah, there. Oh no, I'm pale. There we go. All right, I'm not redoing that. I'm actually going to put that in the video. So